Salam and welcome back everybody to our podcast, Unapologetic, the Third Narrative.
Our original and authentic initiative in light of the war in Israel and Gaza.
A platform where we will share our identities, views, and experience from the ground.
Amira, good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Ibrahim.
It's been a while.
No, actually, we've been recording very frequently. It hasn't been a while.
For me, it feels like it because of my travel to Ireland last week. It just felt like it took forever when I was there. So how are you?
I'm doing okay. It's been an intensive week.
An intensive weekend.
Yeah, but the week started with anti-war protests in Haifa. Protests that were done, Jewish, Arab, people of all backgrounds and faiths, that lasted only 30 minutes. And then the police stopped the entire thing.
Yeah, we're seeing, attempts to kind of sabotage or block these protests. We saw the protests in Tel Aviv last Saturday night. That was also
they're becoming more and more intense.
Violence from the police and silencing people. I mean, we've heard from multiple families, from including people who were from the hostages' families who were abused by the police, hit by policemen, and it was like you don't understand what the hell's going on. And of course, all of this, and we have the last reports in the weekend about the 4 hostages that were released.
Complex feelings there. Complex feelings there. Saving, obviously, we had the mixture of happy feelings of joy of the return and rescue of 4 hostages, but also the bitterness and the grief of the cost. The very expensive cost that the Palestinians of Gaza paid. It was 4 hostages returned against almost reported more than 200.
220 and counting.
Yeah.
And also on the Israeli side, there was one of the soldiers also died in the rescue mission. So you rescued 4, but also lost another person. And all of this together is such a turmoil that it's just time for it to end, honestly. And today we have a very special guest with us who's better to ask about all of these things, about all these emotions.
And about his very unique, heartbreaking story.
Then our dear friend, Maoz Inon, who's a close friend. And he touched our hearts so quickly. And now he's part of the family. And Maoz,
Thank you
for
very
coming.
much.
Yeah, thank you for, it exactly feels like a family gathering.
Absolutely.
Just with a few cameras and some mics.
Yeah, but I'm used to it also in life. That's how our family gathering looks nowadays. And I must say that my sisters are great fans of you.
Yeah, we're honored.
I told them I'm here. They were really, really excited.
Oh, wow.
So it is a family gathering.
Nice.
We feel the same. And we would love to, for the sake of our audience that doesn't know you or your story, to hear a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and then we'll talk about more into why we're here today.
So I lost both my parents and many of my childhood friends, their parents, their children that were killed or kidnapped to Gaza on October 7th. My parents were among the first victims. And since then, it changed my life completely. And I was interviewed thousands of times in the last 8 months, TVs, radios, podcasts, newspaper within Israel and international media. And in the beginning, I used to open by saying that nothing can prepare you or me or anyone for such a tragedy. Nothing can prepare you. So I was saying that opening my talks for the first few months, and then I realized that I was wrong. I was wrong. All my life was just a preparation. And when October 7th happened, I knew exactly what to say and how to act. I needed to advise with everyone or to think about it. I was acting within my nature and within my family nature.
What does that look like?
It looks like that the second day of the Shiva, my brother asked us, the 5 siblings, that he want to send a universal message for our own personal and family tragedy, and he want this message to be that we are seeking no revenge. So that we have decided on Monday morning, only 2 days after. And the same night, I had a vision. And in my vision, I could see the entire humanity. The entire humanity was wounded from the war. Our bodies were severely wounded and damaged. And the ground was soaked with blood. I could see it through my tears and through my pain. And then we were crying. We were all crying. And our tears went down our face into our bodies and washed our bodies and healed us. Our tears healed humanity. And then our tears went down to the ground and washed the blood. And then suddenly the ground became beautiful and shining and inviting. And then I could see a path between the tears and my open eyes. I could see a path on this beautiful and pure ground. I could see the path to peace. So I was prepared for the moment. And suddenly and ironically, I was prepared by my parents. My parents prepared me for the moment of their death.
Can you share with us how, you mentioned that you all your life was prepared, that, for the sake of our audience that doesn't know what you did before October 7th, like now you're speaking all the time, as you said, you're on cameras after the horrific death of your parents. And now, you're getting to be known for that. But can you share with us a little bit about the Maoz before October 7th? The Maoz that was, was preparing for, who was talking about all these things even before October 7th.
Yeah. So I was born in a kibbutz, a small kibbutz about Niram, about 1.5 kilometers from the border with Gaza. And in my childhood, it wasn't a border or a wall or a barrier. It was a barber fence that maybe a few times a day an IDF command car would go by. But we were walking there in our kindergarten, with our kindergarten group. It was very safe during the 70s and 80s. And my both parents were born in the kibbutz. So my mom from kibbutz Ruchama and my father from kibbutz Niram, and my grandparents were Zionist pioneers. They immigrated to Palestine under the British mandate about a century ago, and then during the 1930s. And established those 2 kibbutzim. And that's where I was born and where my parents raised my 3 sisters and my young brother. And my father was a farmer. And it's very difficult to be a farmer. It doesn't matter if it's in Israel, in anywhere, in Europe, in the US, in Asia, it's in Africa. It's very difficult to be a farmer. And I remember like it was yesterday that my father is sharing the challenges and crises in the farm. About the flood, if it was a flood, or insects, or drought, or cold, or hailstorm. And while he's sharing the challenges, he also shared that next year he's going to sow wheat again. Because next year is going to be better. But it's up to him to make it better. He will get the best seeds, and he will fertile the land, and he will open the soil for the rainwater to come. And he will let nature do his part. And in the last 8 months, I've been going through a spiritual and mind transformation. And in one of those days, I was able to look into my body. I could look inside. And I could see the way my father programmed my cells, my organs. And it's very easy and very simple programming. Each cell in my body knows that the future is going to be better. But it's up to him. Up to me to make the future better, not to wait to no one else. And my mom, she was a very, very talented artist. And she was doing art from recycled materials back in the 80s, before it became like a trend. Really making art from garbage. And in the last recent 15 years, she's been painting mandala painting. Wow. I hope I have one. Yeah, I have one for you. And she painted thousands of mandala. And she had a studio just in the back of her house. And there was a wooden deck leading to her studio. Their house was burned to ashes. Mm-hmm. The deck was burned. And the fire stopped at the studio. Miraculously stopped.
So the studio was okay?
Yes, with all their art inside. Wow. Exactly the way she left it the evening before. And from all the 1,000 mandala she painted, she gave me only one. And there she wrote, I will show you. She painted all our dreams can be fulfilled if we'll have the courage to chase them. My mom gave me the ability to dream. We must dream. In order to reach a better future, we must dream about it. Dream is also an action. And she gave me the courage to fulfill my dreams. And in the last 20 years, I've been fulfilling many, many dreams. Opening the first guest house ever in the old city of Nazareth, the largest Palestinian city within Israel. Co-founding the Jesus Trail, the first hiking trail within Israel that is approaching for foreigner travelers and that goes through Christian, Muslims, and Jewish communities and creating a better, not just future, a present for those communities that no one knows more than us here, the gap and the walls between our communities, if it's physical or mental walls between Jews and Arabs within Israel. And then the Abraham Hostel and other activities and initiatives I was involved in that let me believe in my ability, prove that dreams can be fulfilled if we just have the courage to chase them.
Wow. Can we go back, because I remember hearing a little bit about your story about opening the Abraham Hostel in the old city of Nazareth. It's a very interesting story. Like it's like that alone, a lot of moments in your life can be made into like a movie. But I think that alone can also be made into a movie, even the way that you told it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about, maybe our listeners don't know, but how unique what you did in Nazareth is?
Yeah, with a pleasure. So by the age of, and I lived all my life in Israel. I never studied abroad. I just backpacked twice around the world. And at the age of 30, I've already backpacked twice around the world: New Zealand, Australia, Asia, US, and South America. And I knew a lot about indigenous communities in those places: the Maori, the Aborigines, the Sherpa, the indigenous people in South America. And I had not even one single Arab or Palestinian friend. I didn't know the difference between Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, and Ramadan. I didn't know where Jesus was born, where he's buried, and I didn't knew that the Annunciation actually happened. I was born into ignorance, and I was practicing this ignorance for 30 years. But at the age of 30, I woke up, and I said, it cannot be. It just cannot be that I don't know 20% of the citizens of Israel. I don't know nothing about 50% of the people living between the river and the sea. And at the same time, I really, really loved backpacking. And I saw how tourism is breaking those walls I was just talking about, those walls of ignorance, those physical walls, just by creating an atmosphere and a venue for interaction, a venue for dialogue, for understanding, learning, knowing the other side narrative. And I said, this is exactly what we want to do, Shlomit and I, my wife and I. And we want to do it along the Israel National Trail because there is huge potential in Israel. It's the birthplace of three monotheistic religions, so many important figures, events of history that are impacting our life nowadays, not just in Israel, but around the world. And there was no information about hiking in Israel in English, and there were no guest houses like we experienced in traveling away. So we said, let's open a community-based guest house. Let's open it in a Palestinian community. And we start still traveling in South America in the year of 2004. We start mapping all the Palestinian community within Israel. And also many of the Israelis don't know that 15% of all citizens of Israel are Palestinians. What the Arabs of 48, Palestinian with Israeli IDs, some would say Arab Israelis, and 5% are the citizens of Jerusalem, which are second best, not second best, even third best citizens because they don't have the right to vote. There was an annexation, but they didn't give them the rights.
But the 5% isn't the percentage of people, the residents of Jerusalem aren't in the 20%.
They are.
But it's 20% citizens of Israel.
With the citizen,
sure?
I'm totally sure
I'm
about
gonna
it.
fact check you on
Yeah,
that.
okay,
we're
please.
gonna have to check it out because
Check-
from what I
check it
know
out.
is
It's
20%
not
including
yes, including.
Jerusalem. Interesting.
Without it, it's between 15 and 16.
We're gonna
Okay.
have
So
to
even we
double-check
don't know it. This
That's
is
how bad it is.
This is how bad it is.
If we're gonna argue about
Exactly.
it, then it
I'm gonna
shows-
check it. I don't think it's.
Okay, Uri
I
will
don't.
check
I don't
soon.
believe
Uri
it.
will
But
check soon. Okay, let's see it. And so I said I want to learn. I want to be more knowledgeable. I want to make friends, like I'm making friends all over the world. And tourism is a great opportunity to make friends and create friendships. So we mapped all the Palestinians, Arabs communities along the Israel National Trail, and then we said, why not Nazareth? Why not Nazareth? We knew it's very important to Christianity. We didn't know why exactly. We've never been to Nazareth. Most Jewish Israelis have never been to Nazareth.
why?
This is a fact.
Why?
It's not on the main highway,
Mhm.
and there is a fear. Most Jewish Israelis are afraid to visit Arab cities.
There's alienation, fear of this is different. I hear it in the center a lot. Like, oh, the souk of Taipei. Yeah, it's great, but when it's not when there are clashes, you stay away. Or like a lot of people from like the center won't even go there because they're afraid of going to an Arab town that they see in their back of their minds as potentially dangerous without even ever setting a foot there.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure if we'll just go to like the young generation, no one has been to Nazareth. So we said, and around Nazareth, there are many attractions. It's Cana, the first miracle of Jesus, Safuria, the hometown of his grandparents, Megiddo National Park, Mount Tabor, the second circle around Nazareth, Akko, Haifa, and Sea of Galilee, and the big half circle that Nazareth is in the center. If it's a clock, and on the hour 6 we have Tel Aviv. If we go against the clock, it's Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Amman, Damascus, and Beirut.
Mhm.
And this is how we came to our vision, making Nazareth into the backpacker hub of the Middle East. And with this crazy vision, we arrived to Israel after backpacking for a year in January 2005, 19 years ago. And first weekend, we drove to Nazareth for the first time ever to see if it can fit our vision and our dream. And we fell in love. It was love on first sight.
You're making Ibrahim very happy.
It should be.
And I don't think our audience would be aware of just how much Maoz is popular in Nazareth. Like everyone who's in the Palestinian activist community, the tourism community, like everyone knows Maoz there. And I can say it as someone from Nazareth, and we have mutual friends in Nazareth, that you brought hope to the people in Nazareth in a sense of bringing the voice out. In the sense that there wasn't enough talk about Nazareth and the importance in touristically and adding it to the components of the backpacking and in general the attractions in Israel, and specifically to bring in the voice of what is the story of Nazareth from the people, not from a tour guide coming from the outside and explaining, okay, these are Arabs who live here and they're part of the country, but actually delving into the people's stories, their narrative, their Palestinian story. And as crazy as it seems, it's a Jewish guy who's bringing it to Nazareth.
That's my question is like, you're saying that there's a lot of fear. You're saying that you've never been there before. How did they accept you as this person that wants to do something with Nazareth when you've been there like once or twice your entire life? And if there's fear one way, there's obviously going to be fear the other way around as well. So how did you overcome that? And how did you make it possible?
Okay. First, there was no fear in me. There was none. And I spoke to foreigners, like Americans and Europeans, that open guest houses in South America and in Asia. And there was tension at the beginning. They shared with me. There was tension, and they tried to block them many times.
Probably distrust,
and again, someone is coming to a very close community, traditional community. When a stranger is coming to this type of community, there is a lot of fear from the community because it's bringing the stories of colonialism, colonialism and of the rich people, the white people that coming to extract and take all the resources. So there is a lot of fear and suspicion. So we start. So it's not about different nationalities or race or religion. It's how it is. So when we first came to Nazareth, we start talking to people, and we knew no one. And first, the local people of Nazareth were shocked when we told them how beautiful their town is. They said, the old city, this is where all the drug dealers prosper and so much violence, and we are afraid. Local people of Nazareth told us they are afraid to go there, not just during the night, but even daytime. But we did ask some of the businessmen and the shopkeepers, is it going to be dangerous to us? And he said, not, of course not. If you are treating, or if you are honest and clean, nothing will happen to you. And the contrary, we want to support you because we understand the potential in a young Jewish guy that will make Nazareth into a legitimate tourist destination. We're going to use you. It's not you supporting us. We are going to use you. Mm-hmm. So we start walking the old city of Nazareth and learned that the city basically collapsed and died due to many reasons. We won't have time to go over it here, but due to many reasons, not just because of the state of Israel, but of course she didn't support much. And we start knocking on doors, literally walking in the old city of Nazareth and knocking on doors. And we were very lucky to enter the mansion of the Azar family, one of the most dignified and respectable family in Nazareth.
Again, the Hajar?
Azar family. And I got their number from one of the neighbors, and I'm calling, later I knew it's Odette Shomer Azar, the daughter of the late Fauzi Azar. And I'm very naive. I'm talking to her on the phone. I'm looking for properties in the old city of Nazareth, and you have a beautiful mansion with painted ceiling and marble floor and arches. And she asked me, tell me, you are Jewish, right? Yes. You Jewish people, you took 10,000 hectares of our land in the Nakba. There is no shame in you? There is no shame now you want to take my parents' house? Wow. So I tell, look, it wasn't me. I'm from a kibbutz. It wasn't me. I'm from a kibbutz in the Negev. And I just came back from traveling around the world. And what your city needs is backpackers. And what your house needs is to become into a hostel because it's falling apart. And then I convinced her to meet me for coffee. And then another meeting. On the third meeting, she showed me the house from the inside. The fourth meeting, she took me to meet some of the bakery owners and other merchants in the old city. And the fifth meeting, it was in May.
She was telling you yes, no, she changed her mind.
She didn't change. She didn't tell me anything.
She was testing the water.
She was testing because in traditional communities, businesses are being made on base of historical background. Marriage, renting, everything is being done in all traditional communities.
Based on personal
relationship, and she knew nothing about me. Nothing. So she tested me. And then the fifth meeting, she asked me, are you serious? You really want to open a guest house in this cemetery? Basically, it's a cemetery. It's a dead old city. Are you serious? I told her, yes, I'm very serious. And she said, okay, I have 3 conditions. Condition number 1, you call it after my father, Fauzi Azar, because we are only daughters and no one is continuing the family name.
Okay.
The second condition, we are a Palestinian family. You keep it a Palestinian house. No Star of David, no celebration in your Independence Day, no mezuzah. You keep our culture, heritage, and tradition. And third, because understand you are a poor backpacker and your father is a farmer and you wasted all your money traveling around the world, you must invest in the coming 5 years a sum of 300,000 shekel. You must invest renovating a house.
She came ready to negotiate with you.
She's an amazing negotiator. If you want to ever to negotiate on something, talk to Odette. Bring her with you. And then, if you agree to those conditions, here are the keys. And she put a set of keys on the table. It was the most terrifying 10 seconds I ever had in my life. Like, are you really going to fulfill your dream and fantasy and craziness? Or I'm going back to my regular, childhood friends that I knew all my life and I will know to the rest of my life. Of course, I took the keys. I called my wife, Shlomit. I told her, honey, we got the keys. I'm staying in Fauzi Azar tonight. And the first weekend, my brother friends from Sha'ar HaNegev, from the kibbutzim that were hurt and affected of October 7th, from Nahal Oz, from Kfar Aza, from Erez, they came. They helped us renovate and paint 3 rooms. And 4 days after Odette gave us the keys, we opened.
4 days after?
4 days after, we opened the Fauzi Azar Inn, the first guest house ever in the old city of Nazareth. And now there are more than 50.
Wow.
Hostels, boutique hotel, guest house, all owned by local Nazarene. Gallery, coffee shops, cultural events.
I will fast forward 5 years from that point in 2005 and tell you that for me, between 2005 to 2010, I was in high school. At that time, like he said, you don't go to the old city. Like, it's a thing. Like, I grew up knowing you don't go to the old, like, through the old city during the day, sababa. But at night, no way. You can't walk through the old city. It's drugs, it's crime. It's the place where, like, you cannot step in. It's super dangerous. That was always the rhetoric about the old city. And it was dead. No shops almost, no new shops. All the older shops were like, sort of like collapsing, older buildings, and no renovation, no resurgence of the old market. Fast forward 10 years after that, it's like, it's the happening place of Nazareth. Mm-hmm. It's like all the young crowd of Nazareth want to like join in this revival of the city. And now it's like coffee shops owned by young local Palestinians, art places.
It's very nationalistic. Like, it's very Palestinian.
Very Palestinian, but and it's very local in the sense that they want to have a local economy mm-hmm. that thrives from Nazareth to Nazareth. Local shops, stores, restaurants, you name it. And what used to be the old market that everybody was afraid of growing up, now it's like, it's the hippie place of the city. Like, it's crazy to think about the crime place becoming the hippie place. But that's what it is. That's what it was in the past. And a lot, it has to be, thanks to one Jewish guy with a crazy idea who decided to come to our family and to do that.
But I just have one image in my head. I have one image is her giving you the keys and the rest of the people seeing literally a day later a bunch of other Jewish people mm-hmm. coming to like totally what right. In my mind I was like, fuck, like
exactly.
راح البيت, the house is gone now. They've settled, like we've given it to them. They took it.
That was the rumor in the streets.
Yeah.
In the newspaper and the media. So we've done few very basic things. First, we've decided the house is open for everyone. Mm-hmm. There was no lock to the gate. The gate was open 24/7. There were keys to the rooms, but everyone for the community who wanted to come in, if it's to see what we are doing, because it was suspicious, if it's to use the toilet or the Wi-Fi, everyone could come. Mm-hmm. There were no cameras. And of course, there was no Israeli or Zionist symbols. And I start spending and investing all my day and time dialoguing with the local community. Mm-hmm. Not on artificial dialoguing, but just sitting all day, going one business after business, one family after family to drink coffee with, and inviting them to drink coffee with me. And it didn't took a week or a month or 2 months. It took 2 to 3 years
To build trust.
to build trust. And also, I asked, we had at the beginning, for the first 5 years, we shared some of the space with a local family. And I asked him, Marwan, the neighbor, would you prefer we're going to have Israeli guests or international?
International.
Of course, Israelis.
Of course, Israelis.
Of course, Israelis.
And I know why.
Because I want the Israeli people to know that we are decent people, that we have honor, and we are proud in our heritage. We want first the Israeli to know our heritage and story, and then only second the international.
That's a very open-minded. Like, I wouldn't, if I'm just copying and pasting it to Jerusalem, I was like,
It's a different. No, Nazareth and Jerusalem are so different.
Nazareth is the living proof that the lower the walls are, the higher the security. This is the Nazareth.
The lower the walls
the lower
are?
the walls, the higher the security. It's as simple as that. For 20 years from the Nakba and the independence of Israel, Nazareth was under military regime, with all other Palestinian citizens of Israel under military regime. If you wanted to go back after a dark time, you had to ask permission from the officer. If you want to travel to a different region, you had to ask permission from the officer.
Even to a different village, the nearby village.
Till 66, Nazareth was under military regime, and most of the residents of Nazareth are refugees. Refugees from the Galilee, refugees from Bet San, refugees from all over. And now it's a living proof that reconciliation is possible, that shared future is possible. This is why Nazareth's story is so important. And Nazareth, you are totally right that there is a lot of Palestinian identity, because Nazareth is holding, and I'm saying it's the beating heart of the Palestinian identity of all the Palestinians living in Israel. And this is what I shared with my guests, Israelis and foreigners alike. And I always say, I'm not here to convince, and there is no point in arguing. But if we'll keep oppress, erase, ignore the other side narrative, is sorrow, is pain, is agony, but also is dreams and inspiration, we're going to face resistance. It's as simple as that. And when resistance comes, it's not to us to control if it will be non-violence resistance, like we are in favor of, or it will be a violence resistance. We cannot erase, oppress, and silence and expect everything will be okay. And it's not just with Palestinian, it's all over the world. There is a limit for the ability, time, and strength of oppression and silencing. And Nazareth is the perfect example. The lower the wall, the higher the security.
And I would love to know, now we're jumping all of this, all of your passion, your belief, your work towards reconciliation. And then October 7th happens. How are you able to pick it up and, because you're still talking about these things, you're still pushing to these things, like you mentioned the dream that you had, but still, how is it, it's possible to lift yourself up from that personal tragedy and still move forward? It's so easy to give in to anger, to hate, to vengeance. These are normal human feelings. It's not, it's not something we understand. Where would that come from? But it doesn't seem that that's what's the path. So can you share with us how did you get there?
Okay. Before that, I will share that 2 years ago, summer 2022, I was on a 4-day program, learning and gaining knowledge about what's the occupation in the West Bank. And during those 4 or 5 days, I met many activists, Palestinian, Area A, Area B, Area C, civil organization, and spokesmen. And I had 2 conclusions after those 5 days. First, that the occupation is the most successful Israeli project. Most of the Israeli resources, talent, and power was going in towards the ultimate occupation, that Palestinian will be silenced, there will be segregation into different communities and
division.
And political oppression, movement oppression, and it was so holistic and profound. I was shocked. And my second conclusion was that it's unsustainable. It's just unsustainable. It cannot last. There is no way it will hold, because you cannot oppress 3-point-something million people forever. It's not going to last. And in my worst nightmare and dreams, I never thought I will pay the price. I never thought, because I was fooled, and I wanted to be fooled, that the wall that was shadowing my parents' house, the wall, the most invested wall human ever built, the highest, the deepest, the most sophisticated electronic devices, and the most invested per meter. And I was fooled to believe it's going to bring security and safety to my people and my parents. I was fooled, and I wanted to be. But the writing was on the wall. Like it is now. And as devastated and as painful, and I was broken to pieces. I was literally broken to pieces. And I was drowning in an ocean of sorrow and pain. But seeing in my dream the path to peace, I've decided to choose this path. It was a decision. Not for humanity, not for the people between the river and to the sea, for myself. To cure myself, to make me whole again. I've decided to walk this path. And I've been walking it for 8 months. And in this journey, I'm meeting amazing people. And I remember like it was today when you shared my post. You know how powerful and meaningful for me it was? That Palestinians are sharing my story.
You're going to make me cry.
Me too. I was crying when you've done it. We should not let others divide us. We should unite. Unite for ourselves, for our souls. And then for the future, we must be unite. And when I met you in Tel Aviv, I think it was a few months ago, like I knew all your life.
We
are partners to life and for the future. What you're doing is not a podcast or Instagram account. You are the future. And I want to be in this future with you.
So Maoz, I'm going to be the bad person and take us back to that very, very dark day, that dark Saturday, October 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you? How did you get the news of what was going on, and how your parents were taken away from you, and that you lost your parents' home as well? It's not just losing people, it's losing where you grew up. How did that happen?
It was the Sukkot Eve, the night before, and usually all the family gathers. And this time we gathered at my sister's house in Tel Aviv, and it's about 1 hour drive from my parents' community, Netiv Asara, to Tel Aviv. And because my son was sick, we didn't gather. But they said they had a beautiful night, and my aunts and uncles were there, and they had really beautiful family gathering. And around 11:30 at night, they say goodbye to everyone. My sister and uncle argue with them that they should stay because it's so late and they can drive the day after, but they said they want to sleep at their house.
Wow.
And then in the morning, my father wrote on the WhatsApp group that there are missiles and sirens and shooting, and they lock the house and they are in the safe room. I woke up 7:30 in Binyamina, where I live the last 18 years with Shlomit and our 3 children. It's halfway between Tel Aviv and Haifa on the coastline. And I watch it from bed and I said, okay, again, this cycle, we are in this cycle of bloodshed and war for so long. And it happens every few months, once a year. So I said, okay, I'll go and make coffee for Shlomit. And while the coffee was boiling, it was 7:30 or 7:40, and I start seeing in the news that there is a Hamas invasion to the neighboring communities. That's my parents' community. So I called Dad at 7:40, and he said exactly what he said on the WhatsApp. And I could hear my mom in the background, so I sent love to him, to my mom, and we said that, okay, let's talk soon. And then I saw in Ion Palestine that the wall was fallen and Hamas intruding the communities and Hamas tracks in the roads. I said, wow, like hell's fall apart. So I called my dad again, 7:50, and this time there was no answer. So I called my sister and my young brother who lives in London, and we tried to reach them. We hoped it will be a communication failure or electricity breakdown. But we said, let's group at my sister's house. So we grouped there with the 8 of their the grown-up grandchildren. So we were all from 11 Saturday morning, we were together. My brother already bought ticket. And at 5 in the afternoon, and names start coming to us, like childhood friends, neighbors start coming to us. And in 5 in the afternoon, we were able to reach one of their neighbors. And he told us that my parents' house is burned to ashes with 2 bodies inside. And then we decided to start the Shiva, the Jewish way of mourning, like a wake ceremony that's gone for a week. And it was the first Shiva of the war. And we had many, again, then we start receiving condolences from Palestinian we knew, Palestinian we didn't, really from all around the Arab world. And the only 2 MPs, Knesset members that called us were Palestinians. The Jewish coalition opposition, no one called. No one came.
Who
Ahmad Tibi and Ayman Udeh.
Wow.
They were the only one to call. And we didn't know them. We had some connection through friends, but we didn't know them. They were the only one calling. So we felt we have a partner. We have a partner in our pain and sorrow. And then as we rise from the Shiva, again, suddenly my mind got very, very cleared. And I said, I have 4 missions: to bring the hostages back, to stop the war, to make sure the government stop to exist, and to create hope. To convince myself and everyone I can, mostly my family, but then larger audience, that the future is going to be better. We must believe that the future is going to be better, and we must act to make it this way.
How did the extended family react? Did they agree with your consensus of not wanting vengeance, of your path specifically? Because not wanting vengeance is something, but right now hope and wanting a better future and wanting Palestinians to be your neighbor is a radical thought in the Israeli public right now.
So again, my family, and again, we are not exactly aligned on the same spot, but we are, all my aunts and family watched Aziz and I meeting the Pope, Pope Francis. They watch it live on YouTube, and they was so emotional about it. Everyone watched us on TED, opening the TED convention.
Who's Aziz?
I would just say
Aziz,
that Aziz Abu Sara is a dear friend also.
Yeah, we know him, but the people listening.
The people don't know.
They should.
Yeah, Aziz is the head of the touring company also in Jerusalem that does dual narratives, Palestinian Israeli, Majdi Tours, and both of you spoke to the Pope. It's like it's we're saying it as like a casual thing, but you spoke
Like
to
the Pope, guys, the Pope.
and spoke on the TEDx. So everybody, like
TED, not
on
TEDx.
the real TED.
on the real TED. So everyone
everything
who's
is real,
listening,
but this was the
look
big
it up
one.
and absolutely a must watch.
And I remember, can you tell us that difficult question that your Palestinian friend asked you?
Yeah. I will share. I learned 3 lessons on my journey. The lesson of hope, the lesson of future, and the lesson of forgiveness. And if it's okay, if we have time, I would love to share those 3 lessons.
Oh yeah, we have time.
2 of them, all the lessons I learned through dialoguing with Palestinians, which is exactly what the Pope Francis say, that conflict are important for human evolution. We must have conflict. A place where there is no conflict, there is an oppression and silence. So conflict are very important. And then it's up to us to decide if we want to solve the conflict through dialogue or through war. And we must choose dialogue. This is the most human thing to do, to end conflict through dialogue. So I was listening to Hamza Awoude, another amazing Palestinian peace activist, who was asked in November, Hamza, where do you find hope? Where do you find hope? And he said, I don't find it. I create it. Hope is a verb, something that we are creating. And together we thought, Hamza, Aziz, and others, about a very basic formula to explain how to create hope. And it's so simple. We create hope together with others, by envisioning a better future, by acting to make this future into a reality, and by proving that our actions are effective. That's it. Because if our actions are effective, it means we're going to reach this future. And there are so many organizations. Of course, you. Okay, of course, you. Yes, you're always on my list about people that are creating hope. So you are there. But there are so many, like us, standing together. Women Wage Peace, Women of the Sun, Combatant for Peace, family circles, standing together, and so many that are creating hope on daily basis. Many before October 7th and many much stronger after. So hope is an action. The third is about the future. And then I think in November, where it was published that an Israeli tank was shooting a missile over a house with Israeli hostages and killing them. And then my Palestinian friend asked me, a very good friend, I know her for years. She asked me, maybe that's what happened to my parents. Maybe my parents' house with them inside wasn't burned by the Hamas, it was an Israeli force. And like sitting as close to me as we are, she was denying October 7th. She was denying it. And for me, for my narrative, it was like being punched in my stomach. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. And then when I put myself together, I asked her, what does it matter? What does it matter? What does it matter who started? Who's the victim? Who's the oppressor? Who got more casualties? What matters is that my parents are dead. My parents are dead. And now my mission, our mission, should be to end this cycle of bloodshed, the cycle of revenge. So do we want to keep arguing about the present and the past? Or do we want to exit on the exodus of the future? And then I realized that our stories, the Palestinian-Israel story, was split in the holy books with the different chosen sons, son of Abraham, Isaac, and Ismail. And for many years, for centuries, for millenniums, the stories were parallel. Jews and Muslims lived among together in peace and in harmony throughout the Middle East, Asia, North Africa. The Jewish people were suffering from the Christian, not from the Muslims. And the gap between our stories started to became wider and wider with the beginning of the Zionist movement and the Palestinian national movement, and with all the wars we've been waging on each other for nearly a century. And today the gap is as wide as ever. I'm very realistic. I'm not walling between the, not walling to. I'm not blind to the
reality.
To reality. I'm blind. I'm not blind to reality. But, and it's the biggest but I ever seen in my life, we meet in the future. Israelis and Palestinians meet in the future on shared values, on shared common ground, shared acknowledgement and recognition, equality and dignity, reconciliation and healing, and of course, I tell it to my Israeli friend, Jewish Israeli friend, security and safety. That's where we meet. This is the future. And now we have just a very simple task, because we are already living in the future, to take our people there. Mm-hmm. And I have a plan also how to do it. But before that, I will share the lesson of forgiveness, because it's the most difficult one. So Hamza, in this same interview, and Hamza was a refugee. His family were a refugee from the Negev. And they moved to a refugee camp in Hebron, in the Palestinian Nakba, Israeli independence. And then he moved to Ramallah. And all his life, he lived under occupation. And he said, I'm willing to forgive about the past. I'm willing to forgive about the present, but I won't forgive about the future. Not to myself and to no one else. I couldn't believe what I'm hearing. I heard it again. And I was thinking about it all night long. If I want to be a good person like Hamza, who shall I forgive? Who shall I forgive for the past and the present? The immediate answer was those who burned my parents, the Hamas. In my narrative, the Hamas is a terrorist organization that is oppressing, is killing his own people. And it's within his nature to kill innocent people. And it was my parents and friends' bad fortune that Hamas killed them. And I'm always repeating my narrative. We're never going to agree on our narratives. And there is no point in trying to reach this agreement. We will agree only on the future. Okay, semantic is very important. So in my narrative, it's okay for you to think that Hamas are freedom fighters. I am not going to argue with you. Okay, it's your narrative. It's yours. Let's agree on the future. Let's find our common ground on the future. This is a mind. It's a mind job. It's a mind job. It's not about we need to do this or that. We need to change our mindset into the future. So this is why I'm not arguing with no one. Pro-Palestinian, pro-Israelis, I always tell them you're right, and you choose the right side. Of course, you choose the right side because you are a right person. But by choosing the right side, we are just ensuring the conflict, the bloodshed, and the agony, suffering will continue. We must choose humanity. We must choose the peacemakers. And there are so many peacemakers between the river and the sea. Mm-hmm. We must support them. We must amplify them. So I realized that we meet in the future. And the forgiveness. So I said, okay, forgiving Hamas was easy. Because for me, Hamas was acting with his nature. But all my anger, I was seeking to revenge, to punish those who betrayed my parents, those who promised us again and again, and then again and again, safety, that they are secure and safe, that the wall is securing them, the Israeli government. But those feelings were destroying me from the inside. I became sick. I stopped functioning as a husband, as a father. I was getting crazy, seriously crazy. And then in order to cure myself, no one else, just it's the selfish motivation.
Yeah, and forgiveness is for yourself. It's not for the other person.
For myself. And it's just a decision. I don't need to dialogue about it. It doesn't matter how the other side, if we care about it, if it will take it, if it will listen to me. It's a decision I'm making for myself, within myself. And I've decided to forgive the Israeli government and to focus only in the future, because the future is what matters, the future. And I will use Aziz's words. We cannot let the past slave us and be caught in the agony and sorrow of the past. We must use our anger, our sorrow and pain to create and motivate us to create a better future. So I think it's not about optimism or not. Peace will definitely happen. And now I've been learning about conflict areas and genocide around the world and catastrophic that humanity created for itself. All conflicts solved at the end. All. And the only question is how many people would die?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we lost enough. We just lost enough. So now it's time to act and to make peace.
We interrupt this episode to express our heartfelt gratitude to our supporters and our Patreon members. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. So this is a reminder that if you join our Patreon community, you will have access to exclusive content and you will be the first to know when we have something going on in your city. So that is your reminder to join the Patreon, and you can do it with the link in our description. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it a lot. That's exactly what all of us are doing. Like, and we always say, Maoz always is like silver lining. You keep on saying that we're not alone. There are many people. Like Maoz is a face that is very well known, but there are many people like that are not just your brother, that are not just Aziz, that are not just Hamza. There's so many people that work behind the curtains, in front of the cameras, just on other things, and they're all part of the puzzle piece.
Exactly, of the coalition.
Yes.
We are building a coalition, the coalition of the future, the coalition of peace. And you can see it, on your social media, but we can see it in the streets. Like I think standing together are a great example, because standing together are protecting humanitarian aid trucks that are going to Gaza. And they are protecting Palestinian in the old city of Jerusalem.
Yes.
And they are doing public events and protest and
they do the best they can. They have protective presence all over Israel and Palestine. They have it in Jerusalem. They have it in the West Bank. They have it in the border of Gaza and closer to Jordan, where the humanitarian aid is coming from. Like all over.
And I will say that, these are the things that are missing, maybe missing even for the Palestinian, I would say specifically for the Palestinian crowd, for the young Palestinians, particularly those in the West Bank and Gaza, we're talking about there is no hope. And East Jerusalem.
And Israel.
And in Israel. We're talking about, we need to create hope. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, Palestinians don't feel the hope. So maybe my question would be, now that we're here and we're talking about all these things, what would be one message that you would have directly to the Palestinian people who don't have hope at the moment, that, look at, they always say Israel looks at us as one group, even though we're not. But then sometimes you would look at Israel as one group as well, and are unable to see that, there are different voices in Israel. Israel is not just one group. There are different faces. There are different people who have different visions, and that yours exist, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I want you to actually to think about it, take a minute and imagine that this message isn't just because there's a war, isn't because thousands and thousands of Palestinians are being killed. Imagine if we had a ceasefire now and we went back to October 6th, a message to Palestinians that would also still apply.
How can...
For them to believe.
Okay.
They're right here in front of you at the camera, and we would love to hear what you... Maybe to have something for them, to raise hope there too.
First, that they are not alone. There are many Israelis, many Jewish Israelis that are standing with them in solidarity. We are with you. And we are working as hard we can. Many times it's not enough. But we are definitely trying to be more effective, more powerful, louder, and stronger. So we are in it together. And together, we must partner. We must partner, and it's been done very successfully elsewhere. Conflict has been solved. Even more deadly, and as crazy and sad as it sounds, more deadly conflicts were ended. And reconciliation and peace prevailed. And this will too. And it's up to us. We must be the leaders of the future. Where there is no one, we should be the men and the women. We should take leadership, and we should work together to synchronize, to work, to dialogue between us, and to envision where we want to be, and to act to make this vision into a reality. And we have a lot of support. The peacemakers, we have a lot of support from the world, even though sometimes due to the way diplomacy works, it's not outspoken or loud enough, but we have a lot of support. And when we are working together, Palestinian and Israelis, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = thousands. We are very powerful when we are together. And we must agree and reach our charter, our shared values and common ground, equality, reconciliation, security, dignity, acknowledgement. And they are brave Israelis and brave Palestinians that are already working together. This is what we are doing now.
Mm-hmm.
Join us. Don't be alone. Hope cannot be created when you are alone. It can be created only with others. So join us. And again, I don't know exactly all the civil society Palestinian organization, but there are. If it's Zimam, if it's Combated for Peace, if it's the Family Circle. And what I also learned, there is no symmetry in the conflict. There is none. So not everything that we still have freedom of speak and of gathering, of movement. So we also we will do what we need. But if you will dialogue and you also tell us, we need this, we need that, we'll be able to do more and be more effective. We are in it together. And we are in it together for the future. And I want to share like the steps for making peace. And because I'm entrepreneur, and unfortunately, the bigger the crisis, the highest the potential and the opportunity. So there are 5 steps basically to reach peace in the near future. We are talking by the year 2030, there will be peace between the river and the sea. This is the time frame. It's not in our generation, not in our lifetime. It's coming soon. We must dream together. We must reach our common ground and shared values. We must coalesce. We must build a very strong coalition that will work and execute. And we must have a roadmap, which we already have the basic. And the first 2 chapters in the roadmap is to amplify the voices of peace and to build legitimacy for peace, and to us as the leaders of the future, and to execute. And you, in your amazing and empowering, and I have no more words to describe it, a podcast, you are already doing it. You are building leadership, not just of yourself, but of your guests, and you amplify the voices of peace and of the future. So you like, exactly. And many people ask me, Maoz, we need more of you to multiply you. But I said, there are already many. Amira and Ibrahim and Aziz and Mai. We are so many already. So we just need to work together exactly like we are doing. So this is why this time it's going to work. It's going to work, and we're going to make peace between the river and the sea.
Amen.
Inshallah. I always argue that both our people's biggest problem, I would say, until now, was looking at the land as more important than the people. And we need to switch that framework. The people are more important than the land.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no Israelis and no Palestinians between the river and the sea, then this place will be called something else by somebody else. They can call it Hummustan for all I know, but they won't be Israel or Palestine because there'll be another people. Without the people, there is no land. The land has no meaning without the people. If we keep looking at the land as more important than the people, we'll continue to sacrifice the people. We won't have any people left.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to start shifting that. The people are the most important thing.
Totally.
The land comes next.
And the greatest meaning, if we start speaking about meaning, the greatest meaning for humanity is peace. As simple as that. And this is the only meaning I have in my life. And I want my parents, and I want all the victims of this war and of the 100 years of conflict to be victims of peace. Because, and that's what I shared yesterday, the only war which has been won is a war which leads to peace. Otherwise, we are losing all the wars. We are losing. Only war which leads to peace is a war that has been won. And Europe has proven it. Europe has proven it. And the sixth founding nation of Europe. And in Europe, there was war waging 80 years ago. Tens millions of people died. In two world, and even more in two world wars. And then the founding nations of the EU realized that in order to prevent the next war, and this is what we want to do, we do not just want to stop the war or a ceasefire. No, we have much bigger ambition. We want it to be the last war. And in order to prevent the next war, we must make the enemy of the past into the partner of the future. And this is the legacy, and I'm calling Europe, the founding nation of Europe, to invest here between the river and the sea, because all the people living on all the human living on planet Earth now were born after the conflict started.
Yeah, we were born into it. We know nothing else.
But that's the entire humanity, and we are missing symbols of peace, of reconciliation. Those who are 25, 30 years old have, throughout the globe, have never witnessed peace or reconciliation. I remember the wall falling in, it was 87 or 91. I don't know exactly the date, but I remember seeing it. And humanity needs symbols of peace and reconciliation, and we can deliver. We can deliver a new symbol that will change the history of the 21st century. It's not just about our two people. It's about humanity. And this is why I'm urging and encouraging the entire world to invest in peace between the river and the sea, not just for ourselves, for them.
And it's not impossible at all.
It's inventable. It will definitely happen.
I will share with you one last story maybe before we wrap this up. Maybe to raise a little bit of hope as well, especially that you mentioned Europe. On International Holocaust Day,
I've been waiting for you to share this story.
I haven't shared that story yet. On International Holocaust Day, it was the first time that I go to Zikaron Basalon, Memory in the Living Room, which is something that happens in Israel, where you gather at a living room and there's someone who's a Holocaust survivor and they share their stories and people, listen and ask questions. On International Holocaust Day, I was invited to go to that event at the deputy ambassador of Germany in Israel. He hosted a Holocaust survivor, and there was a lot of diplomats and people from the deputy ambassadors and stuff. And it was the first time I ever sit down and listen to a Holocaust survivor by myself, in my own ear, not just from a book. And when he finished, and, they had a lot of questions. There was one thought that was in my head, and I was like, I have to tell him that. And I told him, if 80 years after you were a victim of the Holocaust, where the Germans and the Nazis were the biggest evil for you on earth, 80 years later, here you are in Israel, in Tel Aviv, at a German household, the deputy ambassador's household, no less, and you're sharing your story about the Holocaust. If the Jewish people and the Germans are able to do this, I think we can do it too. There's no reason why not.
There's a punchline. Yeah. Wait.
And unfortunately, though, but again, it's also an older person. Unfortunately, back then, when I said that to that person, he told me, "Yeah, but the Arabs, we can't trust the Arabs." Okay. And I thought about it for a second. Everybody was dead silent in the room. Everybody was so awkward. And I was like, yeah, I understand. But I'm sure you thought the same way about the Germans back then, right? Did you think the Germans were trustworthy back then? Did you think back then you will sit 80 years later at a German household, any household, And he just looked at me and was like, yeah, you're right. I didn't think that I'll be here. And it's what it is. We can't be stuck on our biases, and to see beyond that, and to see that if it's possible in one place, it's possible in the other. If you distrust people now, you can change that tomorrow. Just like you did with one group, you can change it with another group.
Yeah. We must make the enemies of today the partners of the future.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen. Yes.
But before we end, I want to ask you if you want to share anything, if there's something we didn't ask you, if...
Maybe like a call for action.
Go for it.
To all the audience. Don't be shy to ask difficult questions. Don't be afraid of dialogue. Don't always expect to get the answers, because we don't have all the answers. But it's so important to dialogue and to talk and to practice this muscle, this ability of dialoguing, and then to share what is being going on here in this studio, in this podcast, but also to share the third narrative, to share the narrative of the peacemakers, of humanity, of reconciliation. We are starting a people process. It's a movement. It must be a movement, okay, that will change the discourse between the river and the sea, and later on throughout the world. And this is exactly what we are doing. Really thank you. I'm honored, privileged. I have no word. I want to come again, you to invite me again.
We will.
Thanks.
Like, we'll invite you again and again, but specifically in 2030.
That's
to see
for the celebration.
Yeah, for the celebration of the peace process.
Yes, amazing. And again, the future has all the answers. This is also what I learned. I don't have all. I guess also you too. We don't have all the answers, but the future does. We just need to get there.
Talking about support, we want to thank everyone that has been supporting us so far on the Patreon, that has been subscribing, following, liking, sharing, commenting. It really drives us and makes us continue. And we want to remind you that the application, the subscription button for the Patreon is always welcoming, and that door is always open. And we invite you to come. There are multiple options that might suit anyone out there that are willing and wanting to support. Additionally, if you are interested in actually supporting further, we're looking for volunteers. Whatever you can offer, contact us via the email. If you edit videos, if you translate, if you create websites, logos, anything, sky is the limit. I'm going to be in the States soon. If anyone wants to host, if anyone wants to connect, reach out to us. We are right now, like Ibrahim says, every single episode full time. So we want to extend as much as possible. And I'll cue your outro.
Yeah, and we'll end it, and especially today with such a special friend. And, today it's more relevant than ever that at the end of the day, all of us, you, me, Amira, and every single person that's living between the river and the sea, all of us deserve better.